There's a growing sense of tension surrounding the New York Yankees as fresh developments continue to shake the structure of the roster, especially when it comes to the infield. One of the most intriguing storylines right now revolves around a veteran infielder who has made a firm decision at a critical moment. Instead of walking away from his current situation, he has chosen to stay, embrace the challenge, and fight for a place on the team. That decision alone says a lot about the competitive environment inside the organization, where every opportunity must be earned and nothing is guaranteed. With uncertainty already looming due to injuries, his presence suddenly carries more weight than it might have just weeks ago. This situation becomes even more interesting when you consider how these types of contracts work. Players in this position often have specific windows where they can opt out and explore other opportunities, especially if they feel their path to the major league roster is blocked. But in this case, the decision to remain signals confidence, not only in his own ability, but also in the possibility that circumstances could shift quickly in his favor. And when you look at the current state of the Yankees' infield, it is not hard to understand why that belief exists. There is a clear opening for someone to step up, and the competition is wide open. Injuries have played a massive role in shaping this scenario. The absence of key players has forced the team to rethink its depth and adjust responsibilities across multiple positions. One of the most important pieces is currently recovering from shoulder surgery, which means the team will have to begin the season without one of its primary options on the left side of the infield. That alone creates a ripple effect, pushing other players into roles that may not fully align with their strengths. It is the kind of situation where versatility becomes essential, but also where weaknesses can be exposed over time. As things stand, the team is relying on a mix of players to cover these gaps, with some being asked to handle responsibilities they have not consistently held in recent seasons. There is a backup infielder with experience at shortstop, but that experience has been extremely limited in the past year. That lack of recent repetition raises legitimate concerns about how sustainable the current setup really is. In moments like this, depth is not just about having bodies available. It is about having players who are truly prepared to perform at a high level under pressure. Another layer to this story involves players who are returning from injury themselves. One particular name stands out, as he missed a significant portion of last season due to an ankle issue that ultimately required surgery. While he has now returned to action and appears healthy, the question is not just about his availability, but about his readiness. Jumping straight back into a major league role after such a long absence is never simple, and the team must carefully decide whether it is better to keep him on the bench or allow him to rebuild his rhythm with consistent playing time elsewhere. At the same time, there are younger players in the system who are trying to carve out their own space. Some of them still have options available, which gives the organization flexibility in how they manage the roster. Others, however, are running out of chances, and that creates difficult decisions behind the scenes. When multiple players are competing for limited spots, every small detail matters, from recent performance to long-term potential. It becomes a balancing act between immediate needs and future development, and not every decision will satisfy everyone watching from the outside. All of this puts the veteran infielder who chose to stay in a very interesting position. On one hand, he is not guaranteed anything. On the other, he might be just one opportunity away from becoming a key piece in the early part of the season. If injuries persist, or if the current configuration struggles to deliver consistent results, the door could open much sooner than expected. And if that happens, his decision to remain patient could end up looking like a calculated and very smart move. What makes this situation even more compelling is how quickly things can change in baseball. A single week can completely alter the outlook of a roster, especially during the early stages of a season. Players who seem locked into certain roles can suddenly find themselves replaced, while others rise from the background to take on major responsibilities. That unpredictability is exactly what keeps veterans like him engaged, knowing that staying ready is just as important as being talented. At the same time, there is an underlying sense that this is only the beginning of a much larger story. The Yankees are navigating a period where expectations remain extremely high, but the path to meeting those expectations is far from straightforward. Injuries, roster decisions, and internal competition are all colliding at once, creating a scenario where every move is being closely watched and heavily debated. And within that environment, players who are willing to embrace uncertainty and fight for their place often become the most valuable assets, even before they step onto the field. As the attention shifts from the infield puzzle to what has been happening on the mound, the conversation around the New York Yankees takes on an entirely different level of intensity. While there was already excitement surrounding the return of established arms, no one expected a young pitcher to completely steal the spotlight in such a dramatic fashion. Yet that is exactly what unfolded, as a rising talent delivered a performance that instantly turned heads across the organization and left even the most experienced figures impressed by what they were witnessing. There is something different about a pitcher who does not just rely on velocity, but uses it as a weapon in combination with control and confidence. That is precisely what made this outing so special. The radar gun readings alone were enough to generate buzz, with fastballs consistently reaching the upper limits that only a handful of pitchers in the game can touch. But what truly elevated the performance was the way those pitches were executed. It was not just about throwing hard, it was about knowing where to place the ball, how to attack hitters, and how to stay composed in every count. Against a lineup that is more than capable of punishing mistakes, the young arm showed no hesitation. Swing after swing came up empty, and even when contact was made, it rarely resulted in anything meaningful. The hitters looked uncomfortable, often late on the fastball, and completely out of sync against the secondary pitches. That combination created a scenario where each at-bat seemed to tilt further in the pitcher's favor, building momentum with every out recorded. It is the kind of dominance that cannot be easily ignored, even in a setting where results are sometimes taken with caution. What stood out just as much as the raw numbers was the reaction from within the clubhouse. When a manager known for his measured approach starts highlighting not just the velocity, but the command and pitch mix, it becomes clear that something significant is happening. The ability to locate pitches in key moments, to recover when behind in the count, and to finish hitters with confidence are all traits that separate promising prospects from players who are truly ready to contribute at the highest level. In this case, those traits were on full display, creating a wave of optimism that quickly spread among teammates. One of the most telling endorsements came from behind the plate, where a catcher who has seen a wide range of pitching styles expressed complete confidence in what he was witnessing. What catcher speaks about a pitcher's readiness, it carries a different kind of weight because it reflects not just the outcome of pitches, but the feel, the rhythm, and the trust that develops during a game. Hearing that level of belief adds another layer to the conversation, suggesting that this is not just a fleeting moment, but potentially the beginning of something much bigger. And yet, just as quickly as the excitement reached its peak, a decision came down that shifted the tone entirely. Despite the dominant performances and the growing calls for an opportunity at the highest level, the organization chose to send the young pitcher back to the minor league camp. It was a move that immediately sparked strong reactions, not only among fans, but also across the broader baseball community. In a sport where performance is supposed to dictate opportunity, decisions like this always invite scrutiny and debate. From one perspective, the frustration is easy to understand. When a player is clearly outperforming expectations and demonstrating the tools needed to succeed, it feels natural to want to see that talent tested against the best competition available. Fans, especially in a city that demands results, tend to have little patience for waiting when they believe a difference maker is ready. The idea of holding back such a player can feel like a missed opportunity, particularly for a team with championship aspirations. On the other hand, there is a more cautious approach that organizations often take with young talent. Development is not always linear, and the jump to the major leagues comes with pressures that go far beyond physical ability. There's the mental aspect, the adjustments that opposing teams make, and the challenge of maintaining consistency over a long season. By allowing a pitcher to continue refining his skills away from that spotlight, the team may believe it is setting him up for more sustainable success in the future. This divide in opinion creates a fascinating dynamic around the team. Some voices argue that the best players should be on the field regardless of experience, while others emphasize the importance of timing and preparation. Both sides bring valid points, and the reality is that these decisions are rarely as simple as they appear from the outside. The front office must weigh immediate needs against long-term goals, all while managing expectations from a fan base that is deeply invested in every move. Meanwhile, the player at the center of this discussion finds himself in a position that requires patience and resilience. Being sent back down after such an impressive showing could be seen as a setback, but can also serve as motivation. The path to the major leagues is filled with moments like this, where proving oneself is an ongoing process rather than a single achievement. If anything, the performances that sparked this entire conversation have already established a clear message. The talent is real, and the opportunity is likely only a matter of time. Even as the debate continues to swirl around that decision, the internal competition within the New York Yankees only becomes more intense. Every bullpen session, every inning pitched, and every small adjustment now carries extra significance. Players are fully aware that opportunities at the highest level are limited, and when a door closes for one moment, it often means another must be forced open through consistent performance. That kind of environment can either break a player's confidence or sharpen it, and in this case, all signs point toward a young arm that is only becoming more determined to prove he belongs. There is also a broader strategic layer to consider when evaluating this situation. Early in a season, teams often prioritize stability over experimentation, especially when expectations are as high as they are in New York. The coaching staff may prefer to rely on pitchers who have already experienced the rhythm of a full major league schedule, even if their ceiling is not as electrifying. That approach can sometimes feel conservative, but it is rooted in the idea of minimizing risk during a critical stretch where every win begins to shape the long-term picture of the season. Still, performances like the one that sparked this entire conversation have a way of lingering in the minds of decision-makers. It is not something that can simply be ignored or forgotten. Each time a current starter struggles or a reliever fails to execute in a key moment, comparisons will inevitably surface. The question will not just be about what went wrong, but also about whether a different option could have changed the outcome. That is how pressure builds internally, even when the official stance remains focused on patience and development. But before we continue, please remember to join our channel and give this video a like. Your support allows us to keep bringing you the latest news about the New York Yankees. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments. Tension appears to be quietly building inside the New York Yankees clubhouse, and recent remarks from manager Boone have only fueled speculation about a possible internal shakeup. In what sounded less like a routine post-game comment and more like a warning shot, Boone reportedly stated, "If this happens again, he's going to be out of the Yankees," a quote that has since sparked widespread debate among insiders and fans alike. While Boone did not publicly identify the player in question, sources close to the situation suggest the frustration may be tied to recurring lapses, whether in discipline, focus, or execution remains unclear. What is certain, however, is that the tone of Boone's message marked a noticeable shift from his typically measured and protective stance toward his roster. Around the league, whispers have begun circulating that the organization could be reaching a tipping point with at least one high-profile figure. The Yankees, a franchise synonymous with accountability and championship expectations, are no strangers to making bold decisions when standards are not met. Boone's words, whether intentional or not, seem to echo that long-standing philosophy. Clubhouse dynamics are often difficult to read from the outside, but moments like this tend to resonate internally. Veteran players are said to be taking notice, while younger members of the roster may view the situation as a stark reminder of the pressure that comes with wearing the pinstripes. For now, the identity of the player remains the subject of speculation, and no official action has been taken. Still, Boone's pointed remark has added an edge to an already intense environment. If the issue resurfaces, as the manager warned, it could force the Yankees into a decision that may alter the course of their season. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the New York Yankees, please subscribe to our channel and give us a like. We always appreciate your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.